Mayor and council members, we are now streaming live on YouTube and it is 6:30.
Okay. Welcome everyone to this virtual regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. of the Livermore City Council, March 8th, 2021. And we're going to start with at this point, a roll call, I believe.
Councilmember Bernardo.
Here.
Councilmember Carling.
Here.
Councilmember Kick.
Here.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. Okay, now is an opportunity for the public to address us regarding the closed session items. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to the closed session items?
Mayor, there are no hands raised. I believe we have no public comment.
Okay, close the public comment. And now we will adjourn to the closed session. So we log out of this and log into the closed session.
Sir, when you're ready, we can do a countdown.
Okay, we're ready. 7 o'clock.
Beautiful. Stand by. Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're just coming back from a closed session. Could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno,
Here.
Councilmember Carling,
I'm here.
Councilmember Kick,
Here.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. Okay, we're ready to transition to the Pledge of Allegiance. So you're going to be showing the flag. There we go. If everyone could follow along on mute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to ask the city attorney if there's any report of action taken in the closed session.
Mr. Mayor, this is Jason Alcala, your city attorney. No reportable action was taken in closed session.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to proclamations and presentations. We fortunately have the Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission, Layac, annual update. So with that, I see a staff report and then a presentation, or is it just going to go straight to the presentation?
Hello, Mayor, Honorable Mayor. It will go to the presentation. We're still looking for the students to have signed in, and I apologize.
Nope, they're here.
They're here.
Mariah,
Okay, perfect.
yes.
So-
Mariah and Alicia, you've been enabled to speak. You can unmute yourself.
All right. So I just wanted to state, Honorable Mayor, council members, city manager, staff, and community members. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to you the Chair of Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission, Ms. Alicia Zhang, and the Vice Chair, Mariah Chowdhury, to give the annual update to the City Council. They will introduce themselves and give brief background of how they have served on the Youth Commission. Ladies?
Good evening. Thanks very much for the introduction. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alicia Zhang, and I'm the chairperson of Layac. And presenting with me is my vice chair, Mariah Chowdhury. I myself, I've been serving for 7 years now, will be graduating from Livermore High School this June. I've been a part of several projects over these past years at Layac, but I'm most proud of our World Cultural Fair, which we founded, first established in 2019. And it was an idea we've been brainstorming since 2018, and I've been happy to see its continuation in the coming years.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariah Chowdhury. I serve as the vice chair of Layac, and I am from Granada High School. I've been serving on Layac for about 4 years now, and one of my favorite projects we've worked on is the voter registration and pre-registration drive.
All right, next slide, please. Thanks. So I'll start off with a brief summary of our purpose and responsibilities before Mariah goes into our commission's details. Our commission aims to provide a platform for Livermore youth to communicate ideas and concerns to the City Council, as well as provide opportunities to become involved in our city. Through our projects, we work with public and private sectors of the community through our adult liaisons to serve Livermore youth. Next slide, please.
We currently have 2 staff liaisons, Lynn Gardner and Nancy Blair, and we're continuing to meet via Zoom on the first Monday of each month at 7 p.m. As of now, we have 14 youth members from both Granada and Livermore High School, and as well as 3 adult members.
Next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so moving on to our voter registration drive. These are our 2020 and 2021 projects. This was a project that was issued by former Mayor Marchand back in 2019. Our commission formed a subcommittee of 4, which I personally worked on. We spent the past year up until around late primaries last November advocating for voter registration throughout Granada and Livermore high school classrooms. We successfully registered over 100 students via the headcount organization, and we hope to continue this project in the future. And we were also set to hold our second time World Cultural Fair at the Bankhead Theater in 2020, but of course COVID closed it down. This is going to happen in March. However, we haven't let this stop us, and we're continuing with multiple projects while distancing online this year, which Mariah will cover in the next slide.
So this year we have chosen as the committee to create 3 subcommittees, which commissioners were able to choose and dedicate their time towards. The 3 committees are climate change, COVID relief, and equity and inclusion. So each subcommittee has chosen a main project to focus their time on. So for COVID relief, they are deciding to volunteer with Fertile Groundworks and help support communities impacted by COVID. The climate change subcommittee is looking to increase the amount of recycling bins throughout Livermore. And the equity and inclusion subcommittee is a group that I am personally working on, and we're creating a youth media contest for set for about late spring, and this will be an opportunity for youth in Livermore to share how their unique backgrounds have shaped their experiences in Livermore. And this is just some more information about the contest. It will not be just restricted to art, but it will open it up to things like people will be able to write poetry, write an essay, or all types of media just to share their experiences.
And that wraps our presentation. We thank you for your time and continued support.
And feel free to let us know if you have any questions, and thank you very much.
So I would like to start with thanking the both of you and the whole group for what you do. And the list of topics that you're contributing to are very impressive and I think impactful. So I'm very pleased with what you're doing, and want to encourage you to keep going on it. I see we've got comments from other council members, and let me see who was first. I believe it was Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, thanks, Mariah and Alicia, both. I concur with the mayor's comments. One question I did have, though, regarding the voter registration, or maybe more broadly, do you include the other alternative high schools beyond Livermore and Granada? Or how do you include them?
Okay, so this was a topic that we did discuss regarding Vineyard and Del Val. And so we had 2 links that were open to Granada and Livermore. And so what we did is that they were open to those high schools and it was included, but it was difficult to advertise like in person at those schools since it's not really like a unified student body there. But hopefully in these later years, we hope to expand this and also engage in more advertising and advocating for those schools. But it was open to basically all the high schools in the city.
Okay, good. So really the challenge is how to communicate with those students more effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Yeah, and I think especially because we don't currently have any members of Layac from those schools, it was a bit difficult, but definitely this project is something we can continue because as more students are becoming of age to pre-register or register to vote, so hopefully we'll be able to expand this project.
Great, thank you very much. Again, congratulations.
Hey, Councilmember Panano.
Yeah, just congratulations. I concur with that, obviously, for your voter registration efforts. It's not easy to do that. We've tried multiple efforts during multiple election years, and 100 is not a small number. So congratulations on that. Keep it up. Hopefully that's something you'll continue to do. Other than just saying great job and looking forward to more reports on your efforts, I'll say the 3 topics that you all chose. We had a few weeks ago, we had a priority goals and priority setting meeting to determine our goals and priorities for the next 2 years. And climate change, COVID relief and recovery, and equity inclusion were very high on our lists as well. We discussed these topics a lot. So we're similar minded in terms of the things that we think are important, and knowing that, you know, younger groups of people share those concerns and we're not completely off track, I think is very encouraging. So thank you again for the report and for all your efforts.
Okay, Vice Mayor Monroe.
And I will also just say congratulations and thank you for the work that you do. As Councilmember Bonanno said, yes, this seems to be something that's on a lot of people's minds, all 3 of the issues you've chosen. The question I would have is, and this actually goes back to what Councilmember Curling said, is the connection to including, you know, reaching out to your age group and then reaching up or out to the city and the school to with communication. If there's a way that we can work together on that, or just work on the communication so that the work that you're doing is known and more people can share it, that would be fantastic. That said, fantastic work. Please keep it up.
Councilmember Kick.
I just wanted to provide you an opportunity to let us as council members know what you would like to see from this group. We're talking about equity and inclusion and changing things up and how we include residents in decision-making processes. If you could change how things went and how often you communicated with us, or you know, the types of projects that you were given, and you had full free range, what would you like to see from us as council to support the work that you are doing?
That's a really good question. As for Layac, I think it'd be, well, it was really nice to actually have a project from former Mayor Marchand with like a direction and a goal. So I think probably maybe some continued support and also guidance in that regard would be really nice in the future. And then maybe just continued communication between our commission and the city council, like these presentations, probably allowed for continued contact. Maybe I want to say we could have some sort of, not monthly, because I think that's a bit often, but maybe like a bi-yearly thing, more than just this presentation, where we could talk about what the youth have been talking about and bring it up to the city council, as well as have the city council bring up anything that we would like, that they would like to have the youth consider, or say like have a project like this, the voter registration drive. But like something along those lines would probably be really helpful. If Mariah wanted to add anything else. Or
no, I think I definitely agree. These sorts of things are great, just to be able to share what we've been doing and, you know, hopefully get some advice on where to go from here, especially if our goals seem to be aligned with the city councils, at least like the topics that we are focusing on. I think it'd just be great to be able to share our perspective and something, this is not super relevant, but something that just came to my mind as we were presenting was, you know, hopefully Layac will be able to get more representation from other students as well, so we can better represent the youth of Livermore.
thank you for those answers. I think it's important that we remember as council to ask our advisory bodies if what we're doing is helpful to them as well, especially in the youth group. So feel free to speak up and say, this isn't working for me, or I need more direction, or I need help, or, you know, reach out. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I am proud of you all. So reach out if you need anything and let us know how we can better support all your work and ideas.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Moreau, do you want to say something again, or you still have your hand up?
And no, I actually did want to say something again. So I just wanted to follow up on that, because one of the, so I appreciate you saying that you like direction and specific asks. I would not have guessed that. So hearing that is great. And I actually have something on my mind, but I am kind of suspicious that this is not the place to bring it up. And I'm betting that our city attorney would agree with me. So I'm just wondering how generally council members do not come to Layac meetings. And I didn't actually hear in there a way, I'm not quite sure how that direction would take place. So maybe this is offline, I don't know.
Yeah, can I just suggest something? And is that, you know, what we heard was direction is good, or goals. We've also heard, as Councilmember Bonanno pointed out, that the topics they've selected do match our priorities. So I would like to suggest that Layac pay real close attention as the city staff comes back with the particular items that we're going to try and accomplish and the budget, and that would be the appropriate time to connect again and see to what extent the various goals that we're locking in on could be worked by Layac. So I would do it that way, if that makes sense to everyone. And I would ask Alicia and Mara if that makes sense to you as well.
Yes, I think that would definitely be a good course of action from here.
Yeah, because I do think it was pointed out, we have the advisory bodies, and we'd like to get the advice. So, and we would want to have the interactions. So let's have you guys really look at what staff is putting together for our work plan for the next couple of years, and how we can, you know, how you can help. So I was just about to wrap it, but Councilmember Kick.
I mean, we can move this to another time to discuss, but I'm just wondering at what point would it be appropriate to potentially have council members show up to these meetings just to check in more regularly?
So let's discuss that at another time. And I think that will, I know we're likely to have a workshop on our norms and values, rules and procedures. So let's defer that conversation at that point.
Yeah, that would be great if we could specifically address that at that time.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for all you've done, and thank the rest of your members. And looking forward to continuing to work with you, and possibly even closer than we have in the past. So thank you. So with that, we're on to item 3, Citizens Forum. And at this point, I want to mention that we're, you know, operating under the COVID rules with Zoom and everything else. And there is the opportunity for citizens to participate. That's in the agenda as to how to do that. But at this point, I'd like the city clerk to explain a little bit more detail of how citizens can participate in the Citizens Forum and commenting on our other agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we are using the Zoom meeting platform, and participating in this portion of tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person per item. Members of the public can participate by using the raise hand feature or *9 if you're calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand as soon as the item is introduced. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin upon being unmuted. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to also point out that this the public forum is for items not on the agenda. and that the council is not able to discuss these or take action on them. So anything that's not on the agenda. So with that, could we I'll open the citizens forum, and we can have the first speaker.
Honorable Mayor, the first speaker will be Felicia Ziomek, followed by Olivia Kay, followed by Jackie Cotta. Ms. Ziomek, I am enabling you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Felicia Ziomek, and I live in Livermore. I'm a member of the Livermore Airport Citizens Group who is opposing the Kaiser Air proposed development at the Livermore Airport. Today, I'm going to suggest that at Planning Commission Zoom meetings, citizens who wish to present their views and ideas during the Citizens Forum be permitted to unmute and speak their comments aloud, just like during these City Council meetings. The Planning Commission published instruction is not clear. It only indicates to submit comments via email by noon on the day of the meeting. It does not indicate that individuals need to log in at 7 p.m. and copy paste their comments into the Q&A box for the comment to be read aloud by Planning Commission staff. Even when the citizen does copy paste their comment into the Q&A box, this Q&A box accommodates only a limited number of characters, and it's unknown what the limited number of characters are per submission. So people don't know how many parts in which to divide their full comment. My suggestion is that for the Planning Commission meetings, you either A, allow people to unmute and read their own comment during the Citizens Forum with a time limitation like at City Council Citizen Forum sessions, or B, provide clearer written instructions regarding how to have comments read aloud. For example, quote, for citizens to have their public comment read aloud at the Citizens Forum, prepare your comment in advance and copy paste it in partial sections into the Q&A box with no more than X number of characters in each section. Planning staff will then read it aloud. If you email your comments to the Planning Commission by noon on the day of the meeting, your comments will be given to the Planning Commission, but they will not be read aloud, unquote. I suspect this is the same process for the Airport Commission Citizens Forum, so you may want to reevaluate their process as well. Food for thought for the City Council. How will Planning Commission staff accommodate reading aloud the inflow of, for example, 25 citizen comments regarding the airport, each sent in partial sections of no more than X character length into the Q&A box at Zoom meetings? Having citizens speak for themselves works well. Why not allow this for the Planning Commission meeting as well? Thank you very much, City Council. That's the end of my talk.
The next speaker is Olivia Kay, followed by Jackie Cotta, followed by Jim McSherry. Olivia, we have enabled you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. My name is Olivia and I'm in 7th grade, and I speak to address the issue of the Livermore Airport expansion, which I am against. The many planes that have been flying over our neighborhood have affected my life in negative ways. Some of them are very loud, and I can't walk outside without hearing a couple of them fly over every few minutes. Having that many planes flying over the same spot can be dangerous too. I did research and learned that the airplanes and flying them are the biggest factor to carbon emissions, which can be very harmful for the air. This would cause pollution, which is already getting bad. Also, we see a lot of planes flying over my school, which we are going to attend soon because we are doing hybrid learning. This would interrupt our learning and distract our focus. I also heard that you'll be bringing big planes to Livermore, and that's not safe because big planes shouldn't be flying over neighborhoods with families such as here. About 3 weeks ago, there was a plane crash near where I live, which is very dangerous knowing that that could happen to us. My family said that if the airport expands and the problem gets worse, we will have to move because it would be too loud and the house's value would go down. This past Saturday, my sister and I tracked the loud planes that flew over the area from 9:30 to 11 a.m., and we caught 40 loud ones. We urge you to vote against the expansion of the airport for the best interest of the people of Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Jackie Cotta, followed by Jim McSherry, followed by Kamal Agarwal. Ms. Cotta, we've enabled you to speak.
Thank you. It's Jackie Cotta. Thank you. In reviewing the agenda for the evening and in informing myself about what Layac is responsible for, I'm quite concerned that the city is partnering with and allowing adults to work with students with regard to their focus on the Black Lives Matter movement. You know what happens at socialist conventions is they discuss how to get rid of the American nuclear family structure to implement socialism. What they specifically talk about is how pregnancy is a tool of oppression and that they need to free women from being baby-making machines. We recently saw communist China use the exact language. Under communism, the family unit is obsolete to human liberation. Classical communism regards economic factors as key in determining the formation of familial relationships, and it requires the private family unit to be revolutionized into the form of public ownership. The liberation of mankind sits at the heart of communist ideology. Communist thought holds that oppression is not merely economic or social, but ingrained in the very culture of a society. For communists, liberation means the destruction of cultural norms imposed by traditional social morality. In their view, the patriarchy of the family, traditional family structure oppresses women, and traditional sexual morality represses human nature. They say that they're empowering us, but in the end, they're really just trying to create the collectivist mindset. In particular, language from the left and the Black Lives Matter initiative feeds this narrative. Quote, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families in villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. BLM's official website once stated this, and they talked about how they want to replace the nuclear family with more surrogacy style program put on by the government so that women won't be oppressed by having to bear their own children. Black Lives Matter has said that they want to use community raising the children instead of the family. So if you connect the dots, it's quite concerning. Most of the riots that racked the United States with the last few months were organized by two socialist organizations that have close ties with the Chinese Communist Party, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, based out of Minneapolis, and the openly pro-CCP organization, Bay Area-based Liberation Road. Very close ties with the Chinese consulate here and the Chinese Progressive Associate, CPA. Liberation Road is basically Chinese-directed movement and is a socialist organization drawing from Marxist ideology with clear focus on building the resistance to American constitutional values. Liberation Road, whose people burnt Ferguson, Missouri to the ground in 2014, split from FRSO several years ago over the issue whether to work with the Democratic Party and the parent body of Black Lives Matter. And Alicia Garza, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter movement, is also the principal of Future Labs Project, which is a fiscally sponsored project of the Chinese Progressive Association. Our children should not be indoctrinated into this movement. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jim McSherry, followed by Kamal Agarwal, followed by Kathy Padrini. Mr. McSherry, please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I would like to share my position on the Kaiser Airport expansion project. You may have difficulty hearing me due to the already unbearable noise coming from the aircraft flying overhead. What you hear in the background was recorded in my yard and is typical of the noise we in my neighborhood have to endure every day. And there are a few pilots that are even more inconsiderate than what you hear. These pews circle the airport as much as 50 times per day without consideration for those of us on the ground in our homes to take care of our daily personal business. Since these are particularly rude pilots have taken over the airspace, it has become almost impossible to have a phone conversation without having to repeat oneself several times. I would like to remind each of you of your fiduciary responsibility to those you represent. A person acting in a fiduciary capacity is held to a high standard of honesty and full disclosure. A fiduciary is forbidden for acting in any manner adverse or contrary to the interests of those he or she serves. This means not putting one's own financial or political interests ahead of the public's. Put another way, as a public servant, your loyalty must be to the entity you serve and the public's interests, not your own. You could do no worse to this city than to expand any operations at the airport. Other cities have had to deal with dilemmas like this and have done it very effectively. Hayward is a good example in that they bought double pane windows for the homes most afflicted by the noise, and imposed limitations and fines for pilots who repeatedly violated the noise limitations set in place. Compare that to Livermore's past attempts at remedy by setting average noise levels instead of single noise events by individuals. You should know that a great many of the pilots here are very considerate, and it's obvious who they are. You barely notice they are flying over. This is not because their planes are quiet, it's because they make them quiet by throttling back when they are in the vicinity of these homes. But still there are a few, and one in particular, who show no consideration for anyone but their need for a thrill by doing acrobatic maneuvers around the airport. I can tell without a doubt, if these pilots were flying over City Hall like this, it would be dealt with promptly. Having the airport tower, the airport manager, the city manager, and staff ignore this problem and make flimsy excuses for not taking action is an insult. We are not stupid. Simply not renewing the lease on the hangars would straighten out the problem. There are plenty more waiting to rent them, and FAA rules do not apply when renting hangars. Forgive me if this seems too strongly worded, but I have watched while this council has adopted city staff's recommendations over the best interests of the Livermore citizens on too many occasions. And this issue is the utmost importance. Do not expand the airport and do something about the errant, noisy pilots. Thank you.
The next speaker is Kamal Agarwal, followed by Kathy Pedrini, followed by Andrew Barker. Mr. Agarwal, please unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for giving me an opportunity to speak today. So my name is Kamal Agarwal, and I'm here today to give you an update with respect to our concerns regarding the planned expansion of the Livermore Airport and bringing in 737s by Kaiser Air. So a petition opposing this planned expansion has gathered around 2,700 signatures as of now, which is almost double of what it was during the last meeting. So you can clearly see what the public wants. Furthermore, with the efforts of our volunteers, a website called livermoreairportnoise.org is also live now. And that explains the issue under consideration and how the Tri-Valley community members can raise their concerns. Now, as we are trying to understand more on this issue, I happened to come across one of the past meeting minutes of the Airport Commission that clearly demonstrates their indifference on this issue. And I will quote verbatim from that meeting minutes. I apologize if I mispronounce the name. So Commissioner Chebrier asked, how will Kaiser Air deal with community uproar on its aircraft operations? So the response, Mr. Ducotier replied, the airport will handle. The FAA dictates what is and is not allowed into an airport. An airport cannot prohibit operations. The airport would work with the FAA on a response to the community. Now, it's clear that the airport was well aware of the citizens' concern. Still, they decided to go ahead without consulting with the community at large and just use the FAA as an excuse. This is really sad. I hope that the respected members of our city council would be more empathetic to the community needs and take a decision based on the will of the community at large and not just some big corporate player. Thank you.
The next speaker is Kathy Pedrini, followed by Andrew Barker, followed by Vishal. Ms. Pedrini, please unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. This is my first time speaking at the Citizens Forum, so thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight. And I'm here to ask the Livermore City Council and the Livermore Planning Commission to please take a closer look at the current airport expansion plans and the impact it will have on the surrounding communities of Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin. Building a large jet fixed-based operator will result in more large jets flying in and out of Livermore. Once the FBO is built, there is nothing restricting different types of jets from using it throughout the day and night. This means more noise, more pollution, more traffic, and more safety concerns for the Tri-Valley. With 3 major airports in the Bay Area, we are already living with significant air traffic. In 2005, 1,500 people protested and made it clear to the City Council that the community did not want a jet-based FBO at Livermore Airport. Now, 16 years later, people still don't want it, as evidenced by the over 2,700 signatures on a current change.org petition. And the majority of these signatures, and the number continues to grow daily, are from the 3 cities most impacted by this: Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin. This is also a very personal issue for me. My husband and I lived in San Mateo for 25 years, 11 miles from SFO. For most of those years, we rarely heard large jet noise. And then around 2014, the flight patterns changed. For more than 2 years, we endured frequent large aircraft flying directly over our house at low altitude on approach to SFO. Over time, this constant jet noise became unbearable. Because of the constant noise, we stopped opening our windows. We stopped enjoying our backyard and our home, the home that was perfect for us, the home we spent 10 years remodeling. It stopped being our refuge. After attending FAA meetings in Millbrae, the message was clear: get used to the noise and live with it, or leave. We were told that SFO would continue to expand and the air traffic would increase. There was nothing else we could do to make our house quieter. Sadly, in 2016, because of the constant stressful and unbearable jet noise, we sold our home and moved to Livermore. When we bought our home here, we knew we would be 9 miles from Livermore Airport and accepted the fact that we'd hear occasional small aircraft noise. Well, that small aircraft noise is no longer occasional, and it's much more frequent. And now with the airport expansion plans, we're facing the prospect of more large jet airliners traveling in and out of Livermore. This thought gives me a pit in my stomach. Please, please, for the sake of everyone living here in the Tri-Valley, consider our quality of life and stop the Livermore Airport expansion. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Andrew Barker, followed by Vishal, followed by Fanny Kay. Mr. Barker, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Barker. I'm a Livermore resident. In announcing their decision not to prosecute the driver who killed Christine Boyle at the intersection of Stanley and Isabel, Livermore Police Department simply stated that Boyle violated California Vehicle Code without specifying what section of the code or anything about the manner of the violation. Of course, LPD is an expert on motor vehicle law, and they know very well that riding a bicycle in a crosswalk with a walk signal is not against the law in California. So it's a little bit mysterious what violation they mean. In the interest of transparency, I'm asking you on the City Council to please direct Police Chief Young to release more details about this case and the specific vehicle code violation that they have in mind. Thank you.
The next speaker is Vishal, followed by Fanny Kay. Vishal, please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hello, council members. My name is Vishal, and I'm resident of Pleasanton Meadows community. I'm here to, first of all, thank you for responding to my emails in which I requested you to take a further look at the expansion of Livermore Airport. I have two main concerns here. Like in 2010, there was an agreement between Livermore and Pleasanton City to meet regularly on everything related to airport. And to this date, I'm not able to find any details or meeting minutes of any meeting if it ever took place after that. I also don't know anything about the new Kaiser expansion as well in terms of like documentation. Nothing is available on website. On reaching to concerned airport officials, we did not receive any documentation at all. So there is a lot of secrecy around this airport expansion, and as you have seen by now, there is a lot of concerns and uproar around airport expansion, and our quality of life is affected very badly. In my house, I can tell you, like if I'm attending meeting in the morning time, and if a jet flies over, which happens like every few minutes, sometimes of the day, and I cannot just talk on my phone. Like it is that bad. So we are kind of a prisoner in our own home, in our own backyard. Like this is not how anybody should be living their life. And I hope that you all take this very seriously, and please come up with a good solution around the issue. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
And the last speaker that we have is Fanny Kay. Fanny, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, councils. I hope everyone is staying well and healthy during this challenging time. My name is Fanny. I'm a resident in the Tri-Valley for over 10 years. This loud plane noise issues has to stop. I'm urging all of you to put a priority and solve this issue, as this has gone worse and worse each day, and you can hear it from others who's speaking today. Please consider the 2,700 and counting Tri-Valley residents in the petition against this expansion. The Livermore Airport has failed to perform their noise abatement diligence. I'm urging you to push the Livermore Airport to conduct the noise study immediately and include the 23 plus neighborhoods around the Livermore Airport. Their last study was in 2015. It is supposed to be done every 2 years. They missed 2017, 2019, and this year. This is not acceptable. Their flight traffic patterns map, if you go on their website and click on it, it's outdated for 6 years. It doesn't show all the schools and the daycares and the houses that are here at this present time. Please issue a mandatory time restriction for flying. Other small airports have this in place. It can be done. Residents should not have to suffer from interrupted sleeps by plane noise. This past three weeks, we were woken up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and 5 a.m. How is that okay? How would you feel if that happened to you? Please set a limit for the number of planes that can fly each day. This will relieve the noise nuisance for the Tri-Valley residents. In 2020, the Livermore Airport recorded 168,000 operations. That is about 460 a day. That is 460 loud plane noise that I have to hear above my home. That is 460 loud plane noise Tri-Valley residents have to hear daily. Please figure out a plan where the Livermore Airport and the FBO and the pilots and the residents can have a respectful and mutually beneficial working relationship with each other so all parties can win. Please respectfully take action today and escalate this and find a solution. If you don't live on the flight path, I'm urging you to drive to Pleasanton Meadows or Jordan Ranch or one of the Livermore neighborhoods around the airport to hear the noise situation yourself. Please vote no for this expansion. You are bringing even more jets into this area. Please vote no for bringing in 737. That is just insane. Thank you for listening and for your time.
And that concludes the public comment.
Okay, thank you all. And we'll now close the public comment period and now move on to item 4, the consent calendar. And before we get into anything at the council or whatever, do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
Mayor, no comment has been received.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment on the consent calendar. And I see Councilmember Bonanno, would you like to pull an item or discuss one?
Yes, I think we need to pull item 4.1. These are for meetings that I was not on the council for, so I would abstain for that item. So I think pulling it and voting separately would probably be appropriate.
At this point, because of some of the other meetings I've been in, I'd like to ask the city attorney, because I was just in an ACTC meeting this morning in which there was a new member who wasn't present for a meeting and then decided to abstain. But then one of the other legal counsel says, well, that's okay. You don't have to be present to vote for the minutes. Could I, city attorney, could you speak to this? Because I'm getting conflicting information now from the different meetings I'm in.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor, this is Jason Alcala, your city attorney. The city council's rules of procedure do specifically speak to this particular issue and give guidance that if a council member is not present at the meeting where the minutes were taken, that they should abstain from their approval. Different bodies may have different rules, but that is the rule that the city council has adopted. You are correct that we will have a further workshop on your rules of procedures, your council norms and values, and your expectations. If you would like to revisit that, we can do it at that time. Right now, we're projecting to return to that conversation on April 19th.
Okay, well, thank you. So with that, will anybody who would like to make a motion for items 4, 2, and 3, and then we can go back to 4.1 separately. Oh, okay, Vice Mayor Monroe.
I also move.
Second.
Okay, and that was moved by Vice Mayor Monroe, seconded by Councilmember Carly. Can I have a roll call on items 4, 2, and 3?
Councilmember Bonanno,
Yes.
Councilmember Carly,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. Okay, it passes unanimously on. Now can we go to have a motion on 4.1, the minutes?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Kick, seconded by Vice Mayor Monroe. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno abstains for the record. Councilmember Carly,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
I just realized that I technically wasn't, I was there as a member, but I wasn't a council member either, looking at them. So if I'm allowed to vote, because I was there, I'll say aye.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor, with regard to that particular item, the council has requested in the past through the rules that the councilor be a seated council member and not merely tending in the audience. So I would, which item was that in particular, Councilmember Kick?
4.1.
I wasn't seated for any of those.
Okay, so the request would be consistent with our rules that you would abstain on there? On the
Yes,
vote
I will
side?
abstain, which means I have to take away my motion, right? Sorry, I'm totally messing with Robert's rules now.
That's
So
okay,
again,
because we're under Roget's anyway, or whatever, Rosenberg, so.
That is correct.
Anyway, okay, so I'll second. I'll second it, and council members Kick and Bonanno abstain. So can we continue with the roll call?
So Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and restart. Councilmember Bonanno abstains for the record. Councilmember Carly,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick abstains for the record. Vice Mayor Monroe,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. All right, passes with 3 ayes and 2 abstentions. So now we're on to item 5, public hearing, 5.1. adopt an ordinance amending the municipal code. Now it's complex bunch of stuff, but with respect to the emergency housing, can we have the staff report at this point?
Honorable Mayor, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager. And we have Brent Smith, our building official from our community development department, here to give us our staff report.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm Brent Smith with the city's chief building official. I'm responsible for managing the Building and Safety Division within the Community Development Department. I'm here tonight to help conduct a public hearing to adopt ordinance amending Livermore Municipal Code Section 15.02.020 of Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.02, by adopting by reference the 2019 California Building Code, Matrix Adoption Table, Appendix O, Emergency Housing. One of the most important functions of the Building and Safety Division is to ensure that all development projects meet what we call the building code requirements. Whether it is a home, dentist office, outlet mall, or manufacturing plant, it needs to meet the requirements of the California State Building Standards Code, which is a collection of 12 different parts, including the nationally recognized model codes, such as the electrical code, the green code, the energy code, and the fire code. The purpose of these codes is to establish the minimum requirements necessary to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the occupants and public by governing accessibility, construction, reconstruction, enlargement, conversion, alteration, repair, moving, removal, demolition, occupancy, use, height, area, sanitation, ventilation, maintenance, and safety to life from fire and other hazards attributed to the built environment. Our staff of licensed and certified professionals perform careful plan reviews and field inspections to ensure code compliance. Every 3 years, the International Code Council develops and publishes the International Building Code, and from there, the State of California's Building Standards Commission utilizes the International Building Code as its basis to develop, adopt, and publish the California Building Standards Code. These codes are developed by industry professionals that include architects, engineers, tradesmen, industry experts, along with building and fire code officials. Essentially, this Appendix O provides less restrictive requirements for emergency housing and shelters when the local jurisdiction has formally declared a local shelter crisis, which the City of Livermore did on October 8th, 2018. Prior to Appendix O, there was nothing that specifically defined and governed emergency housing, which then resulted in any potential emergency housing project having to comply with the requirements of the California Building Standards Code, like any other project, even if that project was temporary. This was a barrier to entry that most, if not all, temporary emergency housing projects cannot overcome. By developing and adopting Appendix O, the state has given local jurisdictions the basis and legal right to permit emergency housing projects with more practical standards for much needed temporary emergency housing and shelters. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt an ordinance with an effective date of April 7th, 2021, modifying Livermore Municipal Code Section 15.02.020 of Chapter 15.02 Building Code by adopting reference the 2019 Building Code Matrix Adoption Table, Appendix O, for emergency housing. This concludes my oral presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Bob, you're muted.
Sorry. Before we go to questions from the council, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, we do.
Okay.
The first commenter is David Mann. Mr. Mann, please unmute yourself. Mr. Mann? Mr. Mann, you may go ahead and speak.
I guess we have a technical difficulty here. We can move on to the next one, and if Mr. Mann can come back in, we can return to him.
Currently, he's the only public comment.
Okay. Haven't really faced this one before, but I think we'll move on and go to the council questions, if any.
Okay.
Okay, what? That you've, okay, there's Councilmember Kick.
I just wanted to clarify, you said that we have our own emergency housing ordinance that was in 2018. We have a statewide emergency ordinance as well, correct?
Yeah, what I was speaking to was a declaration saying that we had a local shelter crisis. So a jurisdiction would have to specifically adopt that. So while the state may have a housing crisis, the city, which it has to specifically say that we have a local shelter crisis to be able to utilize the appendix.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to clarify that we're not the only city in this. It's a statewide thing, and we had a specific. We specifically noted that, and this appendix is valuable for a variety of projects that are moving forward in the city. Is there an estimate at which point this would no longer be needed? Are we talking in terms of like 2 years or 10 years or 50 years? Where this appendix may not be useful. I'm just thinking, if we build something under this, at what point are we going to be, at what point are we going to have built something that is no longer protected under this if the shelter crisis is ended? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Councilmember Kick, if I could, I'll answer the first parts of that about other jurisdictions. So the Department of Housing and Community Development has adopted Appendix O. It's part of the code. The thing with appendices is that they have to be specifically adopted, and that's what we're doing tonight. The larger question, and one that we've talked about is staff and the folks out that contemplate these projects, is the time frame. I would say you threw out, a 2, 10, and 50 years. I would say that, I would estimate somewhere around that 10-year mark, somewhere with a minimum of a few years. But some of the units do have a life to them. They're built, some of them built more to RV standards than they are to like a conventional constructed home. So you have replacement considerations that you'd have to make. As far as the state, like sunsetting the requirement, right now it's in our code. And typically as the building codes change, those requirements are not retroactive back to some time. So we would consider that, I would think at a minimum of something as like an, existing, non-conforming use that, but usually what we would probably be looking at is a opportunity to relocate these, or if legislation is changed, or depending on the unit types, someone was able to convert them into more permanent housing.
Okay, great. That's helpful. I just wanted to clarify. We're not planning to build something that we have to take down if life changes.
No.
They would stay up based on how the code currently works.
Yes, and one of the beauties of these units is that some of the state requirements actually require that these are either constructed on a foundation, much like a conventional home, which is much harder for the temporary housing and shelter situations. And then you have situations where they're left on the chassis. And so they're easily transportable. They meet the recreation vehicle laws for width, towing. And the other thing that's great about these is as far as like your earthquake safety, we live in an active seismic zone. The beauty is with the chassis, most of your damage in an earthquake is caused between the earth and your foundation system. And so by being up on a chassis, it allows for that movement. So there's a lot of benefits to these units. And I think that they're a great solution to something that we've all, tried to deal and handle with over the last few years.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, I understand Mr. Mann has tried again. Let's see if we can bring him in for the public comment.
Mr. Mann, please unmute yourself.
Mr. Mann, can you unmute yourself, please? Okay, I guess we're still having the technical difficulties. Let's move on to Councilmember Bonanno at this point.
Yeah, I think you may have answered this question, but I didn't quite get it. What happens if and when the state declares the housing crisis over? What happens to this appendix?
This is Paul Spence, your Community Development Director. We would look to transition the units if it came to that point. We really don't anticipate, sadly, that we're going to have an end to the housing crisis in the next few years. I think most likely the lifespan that Mr. Smith noted, the 10-year period is we probably will still have this crisis in place. But at some more distant point in the future, if the state were to sunset this, we would work with the owners of these unit types and work with them to transition them to a permitted building, whatever the building code is at that time, to a permitted use.
Okay, I agree with that. I was sort of just the legality of, does this appendix therefore go away? I mean, it's no longer valid appendix because it's not under the declaration of the housing crisis per the state. And I know it's kind of a technical question, but I'm just curious about how these things tied together hierarchically.
We do expect this to become part of the building code here in the near term and to continue for quite some time. But if the state were to change that and to terminate that provision and no longer allow these unit types, because they are temporary units, they would not have a grandfathered provision. They would need to convert.
Okay, and I'm not trying to suggest I think that's anything's going to happen otherwise. I just wanted to be clear on how these two things play together. Thanks, that's it.
If I could build on that, I think your question was technically what happens to the appendix. And my understanding is the appendix says if there's an emergency, then this pertains. The appendix doesn't have to go away. The emergency goes away, and then the appendix doesn't pertain. Is that a correct understanding of how this works? We don't have to erase the appendix because it's only in effect if there's an emergency declared, right?
That's correct. There needs to be a declared local emergency.
Right. So the code can have this contingency in it, and the state can turn it, declare one and undo it, and then nothing has to happen to the appendix. But I think the key point is, at the point that the state undoes the emergency, my understanding is then those units have to be transitioned. So,
right. Basically the state can turn this appendix on and off. The appendix stays, but the state, depending on which direction their switch is on, either allow the appendix to operate.
Okay. One last thing is that we also have to declare one. It's not just the state turning it on and off. They allow us to do it.
That's correct. We have declared the local emergency, and that is required to be in place for this to be utilized.
Yeah, this is like two switches in series. They both got to be on. So one last time, is Mr. Mann going to try again, or are we going to give up? So City Clerk, do we have another attempt?
We can try.
None,
We'll
right?
try there.
I couldn't hear that. You say we have no further attempts, so we can close the public comment on forum, comment on this?
I'm sorry, Mayor. We'll go ahead and try and unmute him.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mann, please unmute yourself.
Well, it doesn't look like the third time is going to be the charm on this. So it doesn't look like it's going to work. So we'll close the public forum on this. And I would ask Mr. Mann to submit his comments to us and we'll look at them. So with that, does someone like to, I see no further hands raised here. Someone want to try and repeat this motion so we get started?
I would move staff's recommendation.
That's easy. Okay.
Okay.
It's a real mouthful, and that's sufficient to move the recommendation. So can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonanno.
Aye.
Councilmember Carly.
Aye.
Councilmember Kick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. So it passes unanimously. So we're now on to matters for consideration. 6.1, the oral report from the Director of Emergency Services regarding the COVID-19 emergency. Mr. Roberts, can we have the staff report?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This is Mark Roberts, your City Manager and your Director of Emergency Services. So if you'll give me just a moment, let me see what I can do here to share my screen. And all right. Good evening. We have continuing good news on the COVID front. So with that, I'll jump right into it. The line graph on the screen now notes the continued dropping in cases per 100,000, both at the county level in the blue line you see there, and in the city of Livermore, a number of new cases per day on a 7-day rolling average. And in both of those cases, our numbers continue to improve. Related to Livermore, our total cumulative cases now are 4,051, and our 7-day rolling average of daily new cases per 100,000 population is 4.5. If you've been following all the way since December, you understand how dramatic a drop is that number there, because during certain parts of December, our new number of daily cases topped 60. So very, very good news on that front. At the county level, the adjusted cases per day has now dropped below 7. It is at 6.3. And we expect, based on information supplied to us by the county, that this week the county will make the move from tier 1, or the purple tier, to tier 2, the red tier. And so you can see that the numbers already meet that standard. They have to meet that standard for a period of time before the county can move into the red tier. But the county does expect that this week to make that announcement. So unless something very unusual happens in the numbers, just over the next couple of days, we do expect that by late this week, the county of Alameda will be in the red tier, or tier 2. You'll see that our overall test positivity rate and our lowest HPI quartile test positivity rate, which essentially measures how we're doing with our most sensitive populations countywide. Those numbers are both in very good shape for not only the red tier, but the orange tier as well. And those are somewhat leading indicators as well. So the good news again is that we've had a consistent drop especially as vaccinations have picked up over the past month or so. And by taking a look at our positivity rate, both overall and our lowest quartile, that bodes well for continued improvement over time. So for once, your staff has good news to relay to you on sort of our movement forward. Total number of tests we've completed at the Stanford Healthcare Valley Care Alameda County Fairground site, which was a joint effort between the County of Alameda, the cities of Dublin, Pleasanton, and Livermore. We've completed more than 31,000 tests since the testing site was stood up in April of last year. Our local testing site at Las Positas College has completed almost 2,800 tests since January 22nd. I noted earlier, essentially about our overall vaccination progress county-wide. You can see some interesting stats there on the table that's displayed now, with more than 450,000 total doses administered in the county of Alameda. And in Livermore, over 17,000 first doses and over 6,000 second doses. As you'll remember, the prioritization process started with some of our most vulnerable populations, those in congregate care and the elderly, and then slowly moving back down that to much younger people, from starting the 75 and above, now to the 65 and above, and so on as we move forward. In addition, the ability to vaccinate has been opened up to medical healthcare providers, emergency medical first responders like our firefighters, Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton, our emergency responders like our police department, and teachers and other essentially education professionals. In fact, at the Livermore School District, now over 1,200 of the 1,500 employees who have direct contact with students in any way, shape, or form have now been vaccinated or have received their appointment for their first vaccination. So that's a really great step forward. Vaccination is not required in order to reopen schools. But this progress certainly is a major step forward for everybody who works in the childcare profession. Related to moving forward and next steps in the broader community, I did note at my last update that the school district has targeted March 22nd as their reopening date. And it now does look like we will be in red tier, which means that not only elementary school, which was going to be opened on that date no matter what, but all the grades K through 12 will be eligible to reopen and will be in a hybrid learning environment. In that, they will be at school some of the days of the week and then receiving some of their instruction still over the internet. So turning our attention to how we're doing at our vaccination site here in Alameda County in the Tri-Valley. Appointments are offered by Alameda County Public Health, Stanford Healthcare, Valley Care, and Sutter Health. And you can see there the eligibility requirements for all residents aged 65 and older. In addition, Stanford has begun vaccinating essential workers in the sector of food and agriculture, education and childcare, and emergency services. And we expect the other providers will also be able to open to essential workers in those sectors that I mentioned before. In addition to the site we have here in the Tri-Valley, the Oakland Fairground site has opened to these additional sectors as well. So appointments are available in both those locations. So if one isn't available here in the Tri-Valley, the Oakland Coliseum site is another opportunity and resource for local residents. At our last briefing, the council asked that I bring back a summary of the various programs that are either in process or that we have worked through with as the city. So I'm going to start with essentially federal and state resources that have been deployed. And of course, the most notable on the horizon here is the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, which was adopted by the Senate over the weekend and is expected to be signed later this week. And that includes over $400 billion in direct taxpayer aid of a $1,400 for single taxpayers, $2,800 for joint filers, and an additional $1,400 per dependent. Now that actually does phase out for adjusted gross incomes of between $70,000 and $80,000 for taxpayers. But for a significant portion of residents throughout the country, and of course here in the Tri-Valley, that'll be a significant help moving that forward. In addition to the federal programs, the state has passed a number of programs, including recently the $2 billion California Relief Act. And that funds up to $25,000 grants per business, and that was signed into law in February. And so that allows a significant increase. That's a quadrupling of the total dollar amount available, and for the first time added money for our local nonprofits and cultural institutions to be eligible for as well. So your city staff has been coordinating with our local chamber and Livermore Downtown Incorporated to make sure that our local business partners are aware of the resources at both the state and federal level, and providing information and connecting the dots so that folks can get the aid that they are eligible for. In addition to the financial programs, the state has also a residential and commercial eviction protection through June 30th, and mortgage and tax relief provisions, including credit score freezes, deferred permit fees. And so those items in the state program make up an overall comprehensive program. In addition to the federal and state programs, you as the council have passed a number of things to support local residents and local businesses. Most notable is $2 million in support for small businesses, including $658,000 for the citywide small business assistant grant, the $667,000 for the Alameda County CARES Act grant program, $150,000 for the Giftee local program, over $100,000 for the residential rental assistance program, and over $400,000 for the commercial rent abatement program. Those programs together basically are a comprehensive program where we have leveraged additional outside dollars in the case of the CARES Act grant program, and working to, for example, in the case of the commercial rent abatement program, working with local landlords for those who have forgiven rent, to be able to allow an additional month of rent to be forgiven for those participating in the program. So, for example, up to $7,500 of rent is forgiven, then the city will pay the landlord an additional up to $7,500 to forgive another like period. So those things together essentially are making a significant overall difference there. In addition to the direct financial resources, the city has passed a number of emergency orders, and I'll highlight just a couple of those. One is our commercial eviction moratorium. And in fact, that item will be returning to the council to confirm the extension of that moratorium through June 30th. And that item will be on the March 22nd council agenda. In addition, on March 22nd, the council will be asked to extend the fines, fees, and penalty abatement program, where the city essentially holds in abeyance any fines, fees, or penalties that it charges on any late fees for any activity dealing with the city. So for example, in the case of not paying a city water bill or other costs or charges that are due, those are held in abeyance, and we are recommending that that item be extended through June 30th. In addition to those particular items, the city has passed a 15% cap on third-party delivery fees. And that item essentially will remain in effect until resumption of full capacity indoor dining. So tying back to one of our earlier statements, you'll remember that we're about ready to move into the red tier. And at the red tier, indoor dining is once again permitted, but it is permitted at a limited level of capacity. So your 15% cap on third-party delivery fees will remain in effect while we are in the red tier. Our outdoor dining and retail flex zone changes, along with ABC exceptions and other associated changes, allowed a dramatic expansion of our outdoor dining areas. And if you were out and about over the weekend, you noticed that lots of folks in Livermore were taking advantage of the outdoor activity out there. Things were very busy this weekend and actually several past weekends as folks continue to support our local businesses. In addition to the outdoor dining program, we have been working with our local businesses to make sure that we are sharing information and moving items forward so that information at the state and federal level also makes it to our local partners. Council also asked staff to take a look at our next steps and what should we be doing going forward. So the $2 million that I noted before in your small business grant program, about 3/4 of that has been expended. So one of our next steps, of course, is to continue to monitor those programs. From the commercial rent forgiveness program to the giftee program for downtown businesses. All of those we will continue in the monitoring process. In addition, as we've looked out over the total range of impacts to the community, it's clear that 2020 had a major impact for all of our nonprofit partners who are providing safety net services. So for from those who are providing food through our food banks to those who are providing services to our homeless populations and others, a wide variety of service providers have had dramatic increases in the amount of use of their services. And that has caused a particularly dire situation with our community-based community CDBG grants that are federal dollars. Now, while those grants have always been competitive moving forward, this year we do expect to have a significant, we have had a significant increase in the dollars requested. So over the next month or month and a half, your staff will be bringing back a number of items. What we have done is to move resources around within the CDBG program, the federal dollars, and our local program, the Social Opportunity Fund, to try and maximize the number of residents that are served with that. In addition, we will be recommending that you add some general fund resources to supply some of your safety net providers. So we'll be bringing back a series of proposals totaling about $400,000 of additional general fund support for those safety net services, dealing with a range of everything from rental to services for our homeless population, showers, food, restrooms, to Open Heart Kitchen, Tri-Valley Haven Pantry, Maryland Avenue Pantry, Tri-Valley Haven Shelter Counseling, and a variety of items where we're either moving dollars around within the existing funding sources or providing additional general fund dollars to make sure that those services remain effective as we move through this. And with that, essentially a continued monitoring of our existing spend down of the original $2 million and bringing back a series of items for you to consider over the next few meetings with an additional $400,000 of resources for our safety net services. Your staff would recommend that beyond that, we continue to monitor this, and it really is going to come down to how quickly our numbers improve, how quickly we're able to, at the county level, provide additional openings and opportunities for commercial businesses to get back up on their feet. And with that, I am available for questions. And Honorable Mayor, you're on mute.
Yeah, first ask if there's any public comment on this item.
Mayor, no comment has been received.
Okay, I'll open and close the public comment and turn to Councilmember Kick.
Can you, at the next update, let us know what the status is of all of our city employees, those who, I know eligibility is changing very quickly, but who would like and may be eligible for vaccines and how
Yes, and in fact, I can give you an update then, and I can just give you a super quick one right now. More than 2/3 of our firefighters are fully vaccinated at this point. About 2/3 of our police officers have received a first vaccine at this point. And a majority of our public works first responders have received their either appointment for or first vaccination. So we're making a significant amount of progress there. And those are all of the eligible categories outside of age-based. And we have very few of our city staff who are 65 and above, although we do have some staff, and they've been vaccinated as well, using sort of non-governmental criteria, but age-based criteria. Starting on the 15th of March, there is a further opening of the criteria based on pre-existing conditions, which will allow some of our staff to get vaccinated there. But we'll bring back further information at our next update.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carling.
Yes, again, thanks very much, Mark, for the report. I'm just curious about, you said about 3/4 of the 2 million has already been expended. Just curious as to, are there any of the, I guess, 4 different programs that seem to be in danger of running out of money sooner than others, so that we might have to reconsider or consider reorienting some of the funding from one program to another?
Your staff is looking at that particular item now. Some of your existing programs essentially are wrapping up. So for example, your program to allow businesses to pivot and buy items to respond to the actual pandemic. Those funds have been exhausted, as we told you when we came to you before. And we recommended that portions of those funds be reallocated into your existing programs. So right now, the areas where you have available resources is your giftee program for businesses throughout the community, where we as the city of Livermore essentially give a bonus to those who buy a gift certificate of those businesses. That has been well used and is about half expended at this particular point. So we're about a month into that program. It started on February 7th, and we're almost exactly at a month now, and about half of those resources are gone. The second item is the commercial rent forgiveness program. And that one, of course, was more complicated and took a little longer to get off the ground. And so we are just getting the first wave of applications in on that program, and we'll continue to monitor that one as well. So there's no funds gone out the door on that one yet, but it does look like it's going to be, we have more than 20 applications in at the current time. So I can bring back an update on that. And if your staff feels that additional resources are appropriate in any one of those, we can bring back a recommendation at that point as well. And as you noted, things are changing so quickly as to what can be open, which is really good news. I mean, obviously, what we're trying to do is make sure that businesses survive to the other side, that renters and our low-income residents and those most vulnerable get their needs taken care of, while we're ramping back up out of the recession and out of the restrictions. So we can bring you a little more information on this next time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I guess from my point of view, we don't want money to go unspent. Just because it's in a category that maybe has a balance, and another category desperately needs some money. So that's my motivation, is to make sure that we get as much of the $2 million out there as we can to those that need it. Thanks.
And right now we're on track. They're in the money's in the right pools, but we'll bring back a little further information next time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can we, do we need to authorize you to move the money around as needed rather than coming back to us?
At this point, I think we're in very good shape. And if we do see anything where where that sort of additional adjustment, you have given me some notable spending authority under the pandemic. And so I think I've got the tools I need right now, and we'll keep a close eye. But the good news is things are improving out there in the broader economy, and that's giving us a lot of help.
No, what I was just trying to get at is that if you have the freedom or the latitude to reallocate as necessary, you don't have to come back to us for approval or not. That was the question.
I can't reallocate between the programs that you have already set up, but I do have spending authority under your direction to make adjustments. So in other words, I can essentially do the equivalent. So I think I've got the tools necessary if we had a short-term impact for a particular set of dollars to be able to do that under the emergency powers and bring it back to you for ratification.
Okay, but that's good, but perhaps at this point, given the amount that's left and what Councilmember Carling brought up, maybe you can bring it back for a further, or can we actually do it under this item right now? Or do we have to come back at another time? Because what I would, if we're allowed to, I would just say, oh, here we go, the city attorney.
You've caught the attention of your city attorney, Honorable Mayor, who's going to give us a little bit of help on this one as far as the what the appropriate way to grant the flexibility to move the dollars around within the program is.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Once again, Mr. Mayor, Jason Collier, City Attorney, if you wanted to take a specific action to delegate additional authority to your city manager, that would be an item for another day. We did not agendize that for this evening. This was just a report out. However, as Mr. Roberts did accurately reflect, he has a substantial amount of authority as the Director of Emergency Services to make those adjustments as deemed necessary based upon the circumstances and to return to you at a subsequent meeting to ratify that action. So he has those powers within his authority as a Director of Emergency Services, and he also has his independent authority as a city manager. So he believes he has the ability to pivot if necessary, and if so, and it changes your allocations, he would return to you at a future meeting to ratify his decision.
Yeah, I understood that. What I was trying to get at is perhaps when we agendize these items, we could do it in such a way we could take action if we wanted to. That's what I'm trying to get to. I understand there's a workaround, but I'd rather be more direct. So my question is, can we agendize this in such a way that it's not only an oral report, but action as necessary? That's really the question. Maybe we can do that under matters initiated, but that's what I'm trying to get at, so that we don't have to go through all this rigmarole.
Certainly. What you call rigmarole, I call the Brown Act.
Right.
So just to focus on that. So what we would do is if we have an idea of what type of authority would be requested, yes, we would have to identify that in the agenda so the public is aware of what authority may be delegated by the council to the city manager. If we can get an idea of what we would contemplate, yes, we can build that into the agenda. But it'd be challenging to say something that's carte blanche.
I got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Vice Mayor Monroe.
Working on the mute thing. I'm very heartened by what you've reported out. I'm heartened by where we're going forward. I still have vaccine envy, but that will pass. As we are looking at where we started last year, where we are as we approach a year, I'm wondering if there's a way to quantify and this is complicated because there's a whole lot of factors here. The good that the city has done. So what difference have we made? We know how much money we've spent and how much money is left that will be spent. We know where we've given that money. Do we know the difference? Is there a way to find that out? And the reason I understand it's complicated because there's changes that would have taken place anyway. So you can't say that, oh, 3 businesses closed, because 2 of them might have closed, 1 didn't. We can't say we saved 5 businesses, but so I recognize that quantifying it's complicated, but is there a way we can get that information from the other end?
So the information that is easiest to get is, outputs. So the number of businesses that we helped, the kind of help we gave to those businesses on average, all of those things are pretty readily we're able to give you, and we certainly can. In fact, this evening I did have a slide that literally walked through all the different types of businesses that the gift card program was in. So we can give you that level of detail. But the thing you're actually after, I think, is outcomes, which is much harder. In other words, we know that someone got a $5,000 grant and they're still in business. and they were able to make certain improvements. So that's a much harder determination, but at least on the outputs, I think that's a pretty interesting thing that we do have that information and we can present it to you, because it does give a pretty universal picture of the kind of help that we have. In addition, you're aware that we have designed 2 of our programs to leverage other people's money. So the $2 million that you have authorized, we've spent $1.5 million of that, and that's leveraged a total of $4.5 million of effort in the local community, and concentrated on your small and medium-sized businesses and on your most vulnerable. That's a dramatic amount of resources. So from that perspective, I think, you know, the numbers won't maybe give you a complete picture, but we can provide a little more information on sort of where those dollars have gone.
I appreciate that, and I do recognize the difficulty of it. And I'm glad you brought up the other issue of the leveraging the dollars. I think that that's such a wonderful example of where local investment and the public-private movement partnership it just works really well.
Okay, I've got a couple of one question or request. On the you had the chart there with the number of vaccines that had been distributed in the various cities, both first and second dose. Would it be possible to normalize that by the population in those areas so that we can see if there's any odd behavior going on?
So some version of a vaccines per 100,000 population standard?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do some math on that. Your staff would have to create that. The county does not display the number in that format, but we could create something that would approximate a pretty good estimate.
As Vice Mayor Monroe pointed out, you know, the vaccine envy, and I think the focus now is for us to get the vaccines out and in an equitable a manner as possible, and especially to areas that are the demographics that are hardest hit. So I think we want to be able to see how that's going. And with respect to getting to the areas that are hardest hit, is there any kind of update you can give us on our own local pod requests or what's happening? I know there's a mobile one, and then we're trying to stand up a more fixed one. Could you update us on that?
Yeah, we actually have 3 separate projects working on this. The first is a partnership between the City of Livermore, LARPD, and the school district with Walgreens. And they are going to help us stand up a 1-day point of distribution center at the Robert Livermore Community Center later this week on Thursday. And so we're very excited about that. That is for folks who, of course, are already in an eligible category. And one of the things that the school district is going to be helping us do is reach out to some of the most vulnerable folks through those who have students, and LARPD and the city are working together with our nonprofit providers to make sure that people are aware of that. So that happened as just an outcome of a partnership with the private provider there. Then the city is working with the county on 2 separate projects. One is through the federal government, which has the ability to bring in a mobile testing site. And we continue to work to have essentially the mobile testing site show up for a week in the community. So
you mean a vaccination site, not testing, right?
You are correct. I am sorry, my misspoke there. So yes, this is a mobile vaccination site. And we are working with LARPD to locate this at either of 2 locations, either Main Nissen Park or the Robert Livermore Community Center. So the process for that is that the county recommends, and then that goes up through the state clearinghouse to the feds, who ultimately approve or don't approve that. We have got the county concurrence on that, and that process has started. We are hopeful that we will have the mobile vaccination site for a week, ideally as soon as the early weeks of April. And then finally, our last effort is to set up a permanent local point of distribution at RLCC, the Robert Livermore Center on East Avenue, and have worked with the county on that. The county was very impressed at the pre-planning done by LAPD, the school district in the city. And we hope to have that site up by mid-April at this point. The only thing holding that up at the current time is the supply of vaccine. There is a little uncertainty as the state moves from direct allocations to counties to allocations through their provider, which is Blue Shield, who's going to be doing their coordination beginning on April 1st. We're hoping that's an incredibly smooth and effective and efficient process and helps us move the vaccine more quickly. But we do anticipate, at least during the first few days of next month, there could be a little uncertainty as we move forward. So those 3 programs, the one-day program with the pod at RLCC this week, the 1-week vaccination program coordinating with the federal government, and then the permanent point of distribution at the Robert Livermore Center. All 3 of those are in process, and we're making progress on all of them. And we expect that certainly that permanent pod will be up in April. So we'll keep you apprised on that. But we're finally beginning to actually see some real dates being discussed rather than these things discussed in the abstract. So it's a big step forward.
Oh, good. And is this information going to be up on our website so people can know when something is available for them?
Yes, as soon as the dates are hardened down, and the Thursday date we will put up immediately. But the other 2 dates, as soon as we have a date and eligibility, we'll put that up.
Okay, great. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you for that. And in the future reports, if you give us the updates on those pods and the amount of vaccines that are going out, that's great. So with that, we're on to item 7, council committee reports, matters initiated. So I think we start with Councilmember Kick.
So committee reports, I had 2 Wheels meetings. One was finance and then one was a regular board meeting. The most exciting, important thing to share that affects all of us is that Wheels is giving free rides to vaccination sites to and from. So you can just show the bus driver your confirmation code either on your phone or print it out, and you will get a free ride to your vaccine location or the bus stop that is closest to that location. And this is for our regular bus service as well as the paratransit service, which is a door-to-door service for individuals who need that more specialized service. So that's very exciting. I did want to just follow up on a comment made earlier today during Citizens Forum about making sure access to our public meetings was equitable across meeting types. So I was hoping that we could have staff look into making sure that the rules are the same for all of our public meetings, so it's easier for people to understand. So if that's something that we can potentially look into, I think that would be helpful, especially as we're trying to streamline our communication with the public.
So Councilmember Kick, we can bring some information back on that. Obviously, the city council meeting is run a little differently because you're televised as well. And so the rules are a little bit different there, but we can bring back some information on what our current practices are. Also, we're in the process of switching over to a new software management system over the next 60 days. And so that gives us some ability to make some adjustments going forward as we head into the summer as well. So we'll bring back some information on both of those in memo form to the council. If the council would like to take further action on that, you could do that once we provide the information.
That would be great. And then I have 2 more things. Happy International Women's Day. It's International Women's Day. So this year's theme, they actually always have pretty cool themes, is to choose to challenge. So challenge your own thoughts and expectations and challenge others. And I'm going to choose to challenge. I'm going to take that pledge. And on Friday, it's a very special day for Councilmember Carling and I. We found out that we share a birthday. So happy birthday to Councilmember Carling and I on Friday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So now, Councilmember Carling, you can, we wish you all happy birthday.
Yeah, she didn't mention that I'm 2.5 times older than she is. So yeah, briefly on, since our last meeting, Vice Mayor and I participated in 3 equity and inclusion meetings on the 23rd, the 2nd of March, and the 4th. Stop Waste meeting on the 24th, and then also had a homeless subcommittee meeting with the staff on the 2nd. And I think you got a preview from Mark earlier about some really I think exciting programs that'll be brought back in a later meeting about what our staff is doing regarding homeless. I did want to, one of the comments from in Citizens Forum was wondering that why they hadn't heard about the Kaiser plan, and thinking that we were holding something in secrecy. And as I understand it, maybe Mr. Alcala or Mr. Roberts can respond, but so far we don't have an application from anybody to be another FBO. Is that true?
So Councilmember Carling, you are correct. While there have been a lot of discussions, and there is a preliminary concept which the Airport Commission reviewed, the concept of adding an additional fixed-based operator. A full application, including sort of the sizes, locations, building plans, all of those items, which would be the next step in a process. We do not have that. So at this point, we don't have the final details on any sort of development that would be proposed under the existing rules at the airport. So that explains why we haven't shared those details, because at this point they haven't been turned into us.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure that people understood that nothing is being held in secret because we don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Bonanno.
Well, I had no committee meetings between this meeting and our last, so I have nothing to report there. And I was going to ask a question along the lines of what Councilmember Carling just asked. So that's really all I have. Short and sweet tonight.
Okay, Vice Mayor Monroe.
Well, Councilmember Carling and I shared a number of meetings, not the Stop Waste one, but when the homelessness subcommittee planning meeting together, we were in the equity inclusion meetings together. I do not share a birthday with him, but happy birthday to both him and Councilmember Kick. So I feel like I should raise birthdays, but I won't. I will, however, mention that National Pie Day is coming up shortly, March 14th. So pay attention to that. Circles are good. Yeah, pie is a good number. It's irrational. Pie is good to eat. More seriously, the only thing that I for city related that I did not share with Councilmember Carling is reading to school children and recording videos. This is something that happens every year. It was wonderful to have this shared across both across America, but within Livermore for council and schools to work together to bring reading to small children and big children and just everybody. It was great. I had a couple of questions. I believe a question was raised about an accident. I would like just a little bit more information about that. It can, I don't know if it needs to happen now, but I'm puzzled by that. The question that I think Mr. Barker raised. So that was one question. Secondly, I think a number of the questions around the not actual application for a second operator at the airport being submitted, but as part of that, there was this question of noise diligence being done or not done. I'm wondering if we could address that. And And then finally, well, I guess that's, and that would be it, if we could get both of those questions answered.
Very good. Honorable Vice Mayor, we can certainly provide the council some additional information in memo form related to the first item. Related to the second item, we are in the process of starting our noise monitoring program for 2021. The speaker was correct. There were 2 cycles of that were not completed. So we will be out essentially doing that this spring, which is a traditional time that we have checked those noise levels and determined whether there have been changes in the noise signatures, not only in the city of Livermore, but over the cities of Pleasanton and Dublin as well.
Can I ask what happened that they weren't done, or if they're supposed to be done in a 2-year cycle?
Those items were missed we had a change in staff at the airport. And so those items were not picked up as we had new people responsible for that task. So that situation has been rectified as far as making certain that we understand and staff is on top of getting that process started.
Okay. So I've attended a variety of meetings over the past couple of weeks. What I wanted to point out is, in addition to the great news about the at Wheels for the free transport to the getting a vaccination, the other board meeting was fairly extensive on reporting on all the capital projects that are going on. So there's a lot of good stuff. And I would just urge people to pull up the video of that meeting and look at it if you want to see everything that's going on in the transportation area. I was at an ACTC meeting this morning, and that approves a variety of construction projects. The one of note, I think, for us is that the final connection link of State Route 84 at 680 is getting underway. Also enjoyed the reading to the school kids, and that's great fun. So I think all of us can, take advantage of that next year. And then with respect to the airport and the questions, I think it's very important to point out to people that we have nothing in terms of an application. But we're now here in March, but when do we expect that if there is an application made, that it would appear at the Planning Commission? What's kind of the time frame of reasonableness there?
Well, Honorable Mayor, the first thing we actually have to do is see what's in the application. Assuming that the application follows much as what's sort of preliminarily been discussed, then those items, the development portion of the project, would need to go through an environmental review. Depending on the nature of that environmental review, that would take between 4 and 12 months to complete. And at the conclusion of that environmental review, then the item would go to the Planning Commission for review of the physical improvements. For example, any hangars that would be added consistent with the zoning out there, or any office space that would be added. So those items at the earliest this summer and at the latest next summer is sort of the range. But until we get an actual real application, I can't give you a better answer to that, and until we've done our initial analysis of what's in that application to determine what the appropriate environmental analysis would include.
Okay, so it's a long time before anything would ever come before the council that we would vote one way or another on. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement, and we will give lots of notice as to sort of what's going on. In addition, I did want to note that a series of frequently asked questions are now available on our website related to the airport, since we've been getting lots of questions about, can we limit what kinds of planes fly in and out of the airport? Can we limit who we do business with at the airport? Those sorts of items now are, we've provided quite a bit of information in frequently asked questions. If people have questions about the process or what things we have to the ability to control at a local level.
So the reason, there are a couple of reasons for pointing out the timing is that, people should be aware of that, and they can maybe time their own comments to us closer to when anything could be coming towards us. I think the other thing is it points out that getting the Planning Commission and others to be able to take more public comment, we've got a lot of time to get that figured out as well. And that the Well, you coming back and telling us what we can do is going to be soon enough for any significant meetings that people want to participate in. So I think that's the other point. But nevertheless, we're going to want to open up these other meetings to these kind of procedures as quickly as possible. But we do have time to fold in the transition to the new software that will enable a lot of it. Because that's my understanding as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. And then the final thing I'd like to let people know is that the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin, the council member and mayors, will be talking about this and sharing information as we go. So that's in process as well. So that's all I've got. So I think we're ready to adjourn to a special city council meeting on March 15th, 2021 at 5 p.m. that will be held virtually using Zoom. So with that, we're adjourned.
Good night,
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.